What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Game Time discussion. I'm Emery Cousins, sitting here with Cameron Selby, and we're going to be going over that awesome Sunday live stream that we do every weekend. It's good to see everybody in the chat already saying what's up. It's good to see y'all, Dustin, Sam, and Brandon. Brandon said you. I'm not sure why, but happy to
Might have
see
been my
y'all.
elbow. I don't know if y'all caught that
Yeah, that
as we
popped pretty
as we
good.
came in.
I
But
heard it through this. Yeah, happy to see y'all. Hopefully we can get after this and make some awesome lines that can make us some money. I can't talk today.
yeah, there are so many running backs that I want to play today. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be very uncomfortable if we only play 5 lines and looking at exposures. But with that being said, because of that, ownership is just completely spread out today. There's not a single guy projected over 25%.
Right.
And 2 of the top 3 are guys that I don't even know if we're going to end up even having the exposure to. So really fun stuff. Exciting slate today, right before the holiday, week where we got a 3-game Thanksgiving slate, which we're gonna have a special.
Yes.
Obviously, we have been doing showdowns and we've done main first looks. We're gonna do a Thanksgiving video this week to break down that slate, some Thanksgiving prop videos and stuff like that, and then also um, details still to come. But we basically are getting to the end of the college football regular season. And so we will be doing our first giveaway, community contest of a bowl pick'em, which will be a whole lot of fun. We've done it with friends before, but basically there will be prizes. There will be a whole lot of fun stuff, but it's going to be our first of many future contests and stuff like that. And we'll be putting that together because that, I believe, comes out December 8th.
Yeah.
Is when those release.
So I believe, yeah. So December 8th will be the bowl picks where they line up everybody who plays each other. We will get a contest made for ESPN where we do a confidence interval contest. So basically you pick your most confident plays. If you think that they're going to win, you put them all the way at the bottom. You get points based on it. It'll describe it, of course, but if you want to see more, we're going to talk about this every time we get on here. But if you want to see more, we'll talk about it later in our Discord, of course. We'll be putting out links and then we'll put them in here so y'all will be able to get them. The other thing we need to go ahead and talk about and look into is this game that happened on Thursday Night Football in the snow, which was a ton of fun. Before we do that, Friday next week, the Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs are going to play. We're also going to do that will be our Thursday Night Football showdown show. It's going to be on Friday night, but we'll get one out also for that. And then, like Cam said, the Thursday set of games, I think it's 3 again. I think they're still doing 3. So 3 games on that day too. So we'll talk about that. But looking at the first thing is the Browns. That game was actually, I expected it to be pretty boring. With the weather and everything, not really throwing the ball and stuff, but it turned out to be a lot of fun. So Jameis Winston is very good at football.
Yeah,
in his own way.
There was some really nice aesthetic shots of him in the snow, like rushing for his touchdown.
Yeah.
Or he knocks out his battery from his headset, and basically that's dangling in his eyes on the 2-point conversion. You see in slow motion as he throws a dot to convert and stuff like that, and it's just like swinging back and forth. It was really fun to see. But yeah, I mean, Cleveland just finds ways to beat Pittsburgh over the last few years, and even in a down season for them, Myles Garrett, Jameis Winston kind of lead the way to just show up and show out against the Steelers and really kind of set them back. I don't really take a ton away from Pittsburgh saying, oh, they're fraudulent or it changes my expectation on them, because I think they're a really solid team that will probably go out in the wild card divisional round depending on the matchup that they have. And this doesn't really change that. They're basically locked into at minimum a wild card spot because the AFC as a whole is down
for sure
this year. But yeah, it was a fun game.
Nick Chubb with 2 touchdowns. Great to see him come back. I wish we would have been on him, but at the same time, how are you going to pick a running back that hasn't done anything all year against the Steelers?
It's frustrating when you nail somebody not playing well. I mean, he averaged less than 3 yards a carry. He just punched in 2 1-yard touchdowns.
Right.
And is what it is. I mean, Najee on the other end of it, somebody that we were high on just because of game script and stuff like that, and he just could not get going at all. Yeah, it was whole thing, but still a fun game to watch nonetheless. I'm not one to just turn off the game if my lines aren't going well, and for good reason, because it was a fun into the game for sure.
Yeah. But then the other thing I want to talk about, and we actually don't have this pulled up, but so I'm actually gonna just come out of the screen share. But I did want to ask you yesterday, and me and Dustin are gonna talk about this a lot, but just kind of another question about football in general. The craziness. I love chaos. We talk about it all the time on our show. I want chaos in the college football world of it. 6 teams, I believe, in the top 7 teams in the top 25 go down yesterday, including some playoff teams.
Yeah,
It's just going to be insane. So I just want to get your
we
take.
thought we were essentially going to lock in as many as 5 SEC teams, and 2 of them might have knocked themselves out for good, because not only are they not going to the SEC title game, but Bama losing to Oklahoma the way they did,
yes,
was a big deal. And then also Ole Miss obviously losing to, who did they lose to? They lost to Florida.
And they left a ton of points on the board, so that was interesting too.
Jackson Dart had basically 3 terrible interceptions to in the game, so that was really tough to see. So I don't see a path of them getting in. I haven't looked at, I guess, updated projections, or the ESPN has a really fun tool,
power ranking,
and how you can kind of say if then statements to their percentage chance of making it. So I haven't seen the update on that, but I'm certain that those teams specifically plummeted. A whole lot of chaos. Indiana kind of getting handled the way they did, but because of everybody losing behind them,
they're gonna stay.
I still think they'll be comfortably in the 8-9 range as well. But yeah, a whole lot of stuff. And then A&M,
that's what I was gonna say also, next.
It's kind of disappointing, because I really wanted to see. It still technically is Texas A&M. The winner goes to the SEC title game, but both of them being in the top 12, loser could possibly be out, kind of thing. Would have been really fun, kind of anticlimactic coming in, but it's still going to be a fun environment next week for sure.
How about the Big 12 falling apart? That's amazing to talk about. Well, of course, me and Dustin will talk about it on a recap, but I just wanted to bring it up and see your take, because you don't get to be on that show with us. So.
Sometimes you just kind of got to read the tea leaves with Vegas odds, because when you see Colorado 1 point closing as a 1 point favorite against Kansas, and you're just like, only 1, really? And
2 points last week against BYU.
Yeah.
So to tell you the same thing.
And then also the Auburn, being as close as it was against A&M, and but yeah, Big 12 is kind of falling apart. Arizona State has played really, really well, and they almost gave away the game to BYU.
Yeah,
towards the end,
bad
3 yards short on the Hail Mary.
Time management, everything by them. They should have just scored a touchdown and gone home with more points.
Basically, my take is just put Kansas in and see what happens, because they're just crushing it over the last month of the season.
Dustin would love that. He said, put some respect on Kansas's name. Well, yeah, I just wanted to see what your take was. I think that it's very interesting with all the teams and all the things that have happened, obviously. But yeah, let me pull up our pick sheet and we'll get going on some NFL stuff, though. So
there's not a ton of like marquee games like there was last week with Kansas City, Buffalo, and Baltimore, Pittsburgh.
Right.
But still some fun games. There are a couple that could be weather concern, because the whole country as a whole is kind of going through a cold front.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about it in a little bit to see if that impacts any of our exposure or ownership to specific guys that we talked about in the first look video. But yeah, starting off, everybody took an L with the Pittsburgh game, which I'm glad, because I had a feeling like if somebody picks Cleveland, I'm going to scream, because that wasn't a game that, even though I did pick a comfortable margin, I wasn't necessarily confident enough to put them in my
for sure
Fave 5 spread picks. But I'm lone wolfing 2 picks this week. I believe you're lone wolfing another. But starting, the first one being the Vikings and Bears. This is kind of a wishful thinking, but essentially looking at their schedule, they go into the next 4 weeks with 3 straight road games and then home against Detroit as the 4th one. You don't see a whole lot of for sure dubs or, many opportunities. So I'm just like, well, they're not just going to lose 9 straight, are they? And so that's kind of a wishful thinking pick. But also Minnesota really hasn't been playing that great in the last, couple weeks anyways. So that's kind of like they're both playing bad, but Chicago's at home. and they're probably going to split. That was kind of my thinking with that one.
Yeah, I think that that's a good idea. They should be 6-4, losing
Yeah.
2 games, one be a block kick last week, and then the week that they lost to the Hail Mary, which both of those games are winnable. We have a friend that is a Chicago fan. He is right that they find a way to lose, even knowing they are the better team in a lot of these games. So,
But in the grand scheme of things, that could always kind of be a blessing in disguise because that forces your hand at making not quarterback, but coaching
coaching
changes.
changes, yeah.
Like Dallas, for example, has gone through 2 different examples of just winning so much that they can't fire the coach.
Yeah.
Like basically the Wade Phillips year where he was fired after a 1-5 start, largely because Tony Romo broke his collarbone. But then they win 5 of the last 8 to win the season, knock off an undefeated Colts team,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden, well, you can't fire Jason Garrett, and we had to deal with him for a decade,
Yeah.
because he just won too
many,
much.
too
And then
many
Mike McCarthy
games, but
going
not
3
the Super
straight
Bowl.
12-5 seasons. It's like, well, yeah, they're struggling, but can't fire him.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, I really want to, but I understand.
Right. Well, now you can fire Matty Eberflus because he's should not be there. He's not helping the situation with the young guys either. Bringing in some players, of course, that is above him, like the guys that
he just is situationally bad. And then in the press conference when he's questioned about it, he seems confused, like you're in the wrong for calling him out and stuff like that. Like 2 that stick out are the 2 blunders, the game of the block kick and then the Hail Mary.
Mm-hmm.
The play that mattered more to me in the Hail Mary is just giving up a free 15 yards and then him saying, well, that doesn't matter. And it's like, well, yes, it does, because you can't throw a Hail Mary until you get too close to the 50.
Right.
So if you're just going to let them, you're opening in an opportunity. And so not understanding that is crazy. And then also real quick, the block field goal, having a timeout and over 30 seconds left and just settling for a 45-yard field goal is kind of silly to me. And on top of that, Cairo Santos never missed a field goal inside 40 yards. So you're telling me like those kinds of things you're not seeing. And on top of that, another thing I saw is he always prefers to kick on the right hash.
And they were on the left hash, yeah.
So situationally, it's like, how do you not understand that?
Yeah. Well, that's another thing too, is like you should have, and we've talked about this before. If I was coaching, I wouldn't want the situational stuff. Like in those moments, I'd want somebody being like, hey, we need to do this. This is our analytics. And I would want to just be coaching. He needs a guy that is like, hey, this is what we need. This is, this is the situation and this is what we need. Go get it. Oh, okay. Here's the play call, whatever. But like, he needs someone that tells him like, this is what,
basically in today's game, you need somebody with an elite offensive mind, or you need a guy that's elite situationally.
Yeah.
So like, if you're not going to have that, you need a guy like Bill Belichick, Mike Vrabel,
right?
Guys like that, to where they know what to do when those things matter.
Well, we have so many statistical analyses now in the NFL of like, this is what, go for it or not, right? Those types of things where you see like on screen, ESPN analysis and stuff. They have guys that do this for every single play of the game, every single situation. You should have somebody being like the stats guy in the back, being like, this is what you need to do. We need this to make this happen, whatnot, right? Mm-hmm. And he doesn't do that. And I think he's probably too prideful to change at this point. So, get him out. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure Scott would like that, our buddy.
But kind of going through these picks, we can really breeze through the next 6 because everybody, consensus on the next 6. The 12 o'clock games, essentially, everybody picked the same, except for my one lone wolf pick. And then we go down to the 3 o'clock games. Another lone wolf pick. I am actually the Raider fan today, picking, them off a bye at home against the Broncos. Just kind of one of those situational, let's have some chaos kind of vibes with that pick. And then
Raiders have to win sooner or later, right?
You would think so. I mean, I don't know if they want to, because it sounds like them and Shador is kind of speaking itself into existence, but that's a whole
conversation for another offseason. And then San Francisco, Green Bay is pretty split. You can see that, 4 for Green Bay, 2 for San Francisco. I'm surprised actually because of the fact that Brock Purdy is out.
I actually had to switch my pick because of that. I was going to go San Francisco.
I probably would have too. That was
my favorite pick of the week as an outright dog. With them without Purdy, but then obviously it's hard to have faith in a Brandon Allen who has had one start in 4 years,
Right.
and that was a last week of the season, everybody's bench kind of start. But I could still see them pulling this off because I think just the way they play, they're better coached, all that good stuff. But yeah,
Right.
that one hopefully is a fun matchup. And then Cardinals and Seahawks is a game that we're going to talk about a lot today. That one actually might have the worst weather implications because there is supposed to be a steady rain. Hopefully, it's not a downpour. There is no wind issues, but it's just straight up wet football weather. Uh, kind of transitioning into the winter times. So obviously, there is a couple of Seattle picks on there, but this one I believe is for first place in the division, which will be a big impact, and it is a straight up pick 'em as
I
of
was
this
gonna
moment.
say it's like I think I got it at -1 Arizona or something. It's very, very tight. And then the Rams, Philly is a split. I actually have the Rams. I didn't expect anybody else to pick them with me, but Pete Prisco did. Cam was thinking about it. I know he was. But in LA, that's a long way to fly. And then also, in my personal opinion, I think the Rams are good. And I think since they got back their players, they've been a lot better looking on tape. So the team standing isn't as good, but their actual ability is a lot better than what their overall schedule shows.
Right. Yeah. And I really, really feel like I'm going to regret the Philly pick, but I just couldn't pull the trigger on the Rams. But I did pull the trigger on the underdog at home Chargers, which another hardball bowl. We haven't seen one of these in a while. Fun fact, John, which is the Ravens head coach, has never lost to Jim Harbaugh.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
So essentially, we're picking against the grain in that regard. But essentially, it's just Ravens coming off another frustrating loss. Chargers coming off a really huge win against the Bengals on prime time, and then once again, that's going to be a banger of a Monday night game tomorrow. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, the Chargers have won 4 straight since losing to Arizona, and I really like the Chargers. It's not so. I think a big thing is like when we came into the season, we were like, can it happen this early? Right, because we knew they were going to be good, and that's also like you picked them to make the playoffs. I think you said 10-7 or something. Yeah, whatever it was. But me, I was like, well, I don't know that they're going to be good early because normally Jim Harbaugh takes some time to get going. Well, I guess when you have Justin Herbert, doesn't matter because he's just so good at football. Right. And now receivers are coming back into the fold. Quentin Johnston, Ladd McConkey. Look, when you have good coaching and you have the ability to run the ball and things like that, players can find ways to make plays and win games, and they're just doing a really good job of that. Like you said, beating Cincinnati last week. We both picked, I believe, Cincinnati to win that game, but it's because of the fact of averages more so than they're both talented teams, and that was a really great game last week.
Right, and then should Evan McPherson had nailed either of those 2 kicks, maybe a different story. That's kind of been the story of the Bengals season. It's just opportunities not collapsing or not collapsing. Grasping opportunities. There's a better word for it. But anyways, yeah. And then let's go to our top 5 spread picks of the week. Obviously, you're crushing it this year. 34-20 is a very, very, very solid percentage for just your top picks of the week. We hated the spread picks
last week.
Just
this week. Yeah.
It was really tough to pick. Obviously, we don't have that many similar today, only 2, I believe. But obviously, I'm picking the dogs that I think to win outright, which is Chicago Raiders. I actually feel really good about them covering 5.5 today.
Yeah.
And then we had the same with the Bucks. Chose our side of the Arizona and Seattle game. Makes sense. And then obviously both of us picking the Chargers to win, so we're picking them to cover as well.
Yeah, I saw Dustin in the chat said that Cam is a man of intelligence today. And then, of course, he's calling me out for picking against Dortch. I did want to say, Sam. Sam, I didn't see your question earlier. That is completely my fault. He said, I have 3 picks for prize picks and needing one more. I tailed y'all's Brock Bowers and Mike Evans picks, looking for one more. I would say also don't tail those picks anymore because you're probably late on them. They were.
Yeah, let's see where they're at.
They were right now. When we got them, it was like 53.5 and 54.5. Yeah.
Well, Evans is down to 55. Again,
okay, that's good.
Which is reasonable. And then
what's Brock's?
Bowers is at 59.
Okay.
Tough. I honestly, if I'm gonna choose any of those picks for Brock right now, it's probably going to be his targets.
I was gonna ask, what is it?
It's 8.5.
Yeah,
for his
I
targets. I'd probably
was gonna
lean with
say
that.
9, so
Take
the over on that one.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's 59 is still reasonable. But it's just it probably doesn't enter the top 2 picks of the week at that point if that was what it was on Wednesday.
Completely agree with that. And then he said, looking for another one. Do you have one off the top of your head?
Tyreek Hill free square.
Oh yeah, take that one.
That's my my cop out answer as I kind of scroll through some. I don't know. Let's kind of start talking about the DFS slate, and as we transition to that, maybe something to stick out. Usually, fantasy scores are ones that I usually collapse on Sunday mornings because those just come out during the weekend, and they're less like
right.
duped or complimented. Let's see.
It looks so. I was also going to say most of our quarterbacks are going to be on the early only guys, just because of the fact that there's it's a 7 gamer versus a 3 gamer. We're sitting at 5 quarterbacks on this slate basically, and then only 2 on the afternoon slate.
What do you think Luke Schoonmaker's receiving yards is? Because we're going to talk about him a lot today.
I want to say it's going to feel too low, so like 26 and a half.
28 and a half.
Hey, that's not bad, guys.
That one is really interesting to me because last time in his spot start, he had, I believe he had 43 yards on 6 receptions.
Right.
Obviously last week, basically he started because Jake Ferguson got hurt on his first target early in the game. He had 50 yards on 6 receptions. So 28 is pretty low. They're going to be trailing all game. I don't see how he doesn't hit that.
Right.
And obviously we wouldn't be playing him as much as we will be today if it weren't for us being confident, him having at least 30 receiving yards.
Yeah, I think
that's probably
that's what I was thinking. I was like, it's got to be lower than expected because he's not a typical starter, but I'm sure so that's why I thought in the 20s, but I think it should be around 35 and a half.
Yeah,
truly.
Dusty following up with a Mike Evans question, asking because he was a full participant Thursday, but then limited Friday. I think that was more so maintenance.
Yeah,
he is expected to play today. I don't even have it marked as a game time decision because of the likelihood he's going to play. The only thing with him is just potential wins.
Yeah.
So deep balls and stuff like that may be a little tougher to get to, but I expect him to have about 50% of the snaps. But because of the lack of receiving threats in that offense, he will still probably have his typical, efficient 70 yards on 6 targets, because he's not somebody that needs 14 targets like other guys to hit his volume.
Yeah.
So I feel good about him today. You're starting him if you need to, basically.
Yeah. The first guy on our early only slate that we're going to be talking about, of course, these guys roll over into our main slate. So if we're going to talk about them on here, they're most likely guys we're at least thinking about playing on the main slate, giving ideas, because we do normally bring like 5 or 6 guys into main slate, and then we narrow it down as we talk about it through this show, and then also after this show. So you have to be in the Discord to get our final picks. But the first guy is Jaden Daniels. He has been really good, and the Washington Commanders are 11-point favorites against the Dallas Cowboys today. I think that makes a lot of sense. Let me actually let you run down some of those spreads. I don't know if you want to go over.
Yeah, so I think Dallas is now a 10.5-point dog, which is the tied for the highest. Obviously, Kansas City's favored by 10.5 as well against Carolina today. Those are the 2 highest by far. The next highest is a -7 for Detroit.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jaden Daniels actually hasn't been a great fantasy quarterback in recent weeks. He's kind of hit his rookie lull, but a lot of it has to do with his rib injury. He just isn't running the ball more, or at least efficiently. He hasn't scored a rushing touchdown since week 4. Has only had 1 game above 20 in the last 5-6 weeks. So a little scary. He is the highest owned quarterback today, but great game environment. Dallas is missing a lot of people, including Trayvon Diggs today. So not really much concern with anything other than, if they do score 30 points. Also, Dan Quinn, if there is going to be a team that runs up the score today, it's going to be Dan Quinn. And a lot of the former Dallas Cowboys that are on the Commanders, they've been just, Dallas has had their number in recent years, but also, everybody transitioned over to Washington. They're very motivated to not only win today, but win convincingly to
Yeah.
say we're the team, basically kudos to their former team. And on top of that, it's a great game environment. The only thing was I was hoping, because of all the potential weather concerns, that this was a good environment. But he's the most expensive quarterback on the entire slate today, only 7,000. So it's really easy to click on his name.
The pricing is insane today, guys. It's
Yeah.
so much cheaper. It feels like week one. It feels like when we came to week one, we were like, oh, look at that. It's all easy.
I thought next week was going to be the week for that, because it was going to be back to a full
13
teams
gamer.
on bye, good games and fun games to target, and they just want to have people in casuals build fun lines with a bunch of names.
Right.
This week, where there was a bunch of buys with important names, teams: Buffalo, Cincinnati, Jacksonville, Atlanta. Even if you want to throw in the Jets or the Saints, like guys that we've been targeting all year, all off this slate, and they still dipped a lot of prices. Namely, we look at both running backs. Again, they're 10.5-point favorites at home. Eckler, 56. Brian Robinson, 56. Brian Robinson didn't play snaps last week. He was still efficient with his 14 points. Still had 17 touches. And then Austin Eckler finally had one of his, games that we know why he has fantasy upside. And he had 8 for 89 the air last week. Obviously,
only 2 attempts.
His bread and butter is the pass catching work, but this season he hasn't really shown that.
Yeah.
That was his first game, I believe, over 50 receiving yards. And he hasn't been getting a ton of targets, but they basically really peppered both of them last week. But he's had 3 straight games of he did week one have over 50 receiving yards, but 3 straight games above 17.
Yeah.
Brian Robinson, he's a goblin to score a touchdown today. If you're talking props. So yeah, both of them in great spots, way too cheap. Obviously, Brian Robinson is going to be the more popular play, but if you want leverage, it's also a good spot for Austin Eckler.
And thumbnail. Don't forget about that. He is our thumbnail today. I was going to say, I was looking at the snap counts for all these weeks. Last week, it was 52% to Austin Eckler, 53% to Brian Robinson. They did play together on a few snaps. But with that being said, we can notice if you look at the snap counts, there is a trend that this is basically exactly where they've been all year. So it's not like anything weird. We've seen Brian Robinson and now Austin Eckler go for a ton of points. So both are definitely in play. The guy that I want to get to, if I am getting a Jaden Daniels line, is Mr. Terry McLaurin, though. 15.2 on the year. The dud this last week, finally came back down to earth. We knew it was going to happen sooner or later. We just happened to have him in our lines the week he did it, which is awesome. Love that. But if you look at some of his game logs, he does really well, of course, from over 15 points, but on minimal targets. So he can get 3 targets, score 2 touchdowns, and get this 15.9. So he's always in play against Dallas. I don't know how he's done against Dallas in the past, but I
remember playing him a couple years ago, and he had a 2 touchdown game and 100 yards.
Okay.
That stuck out to me, but I was actually looking up his game log if this computer will cooperate.
Please work.
But also, Jaden Daniels isn't the type of quarterback, based on their lack of a clear-cut wide receiver to need to double.
Right.
If I was going to do a Jaden line, I would actually double with a running back plus Terry. But if you wanted to do the revenge game narrative, Noah Brown, also a former Cowboy, and he could also go for 100 yards, because we've seen multiple games of upside with him. And then also Zach Ertz, which Zach Ertz, salvaged in the I guess garbage time last week to score a touchdown and become optimal on the Thursday night slate. He's 3,800. I don't think many people are going to get to him today. His ownership is actually it's 9% on the early only, which is pretty low for a 7 gamer.
Right.
Pretty reasonable if you wanted him as an option as well.
So I'm looking here. Looks like Terry's had modest games against Dallas for the most part over his career. When he was very young, early in his career in 2020, he did have 17, 22, and 16.2 in 3-game stretch. And then he had 16.4 in 2023. So he was actually held in check earlier this year at 11.6. So
they haven't played Dallas this year
yet.
Because
that was
they're closing the
January 7th. So last year.
I see.
That's why I thought it was 2024. But yeah, so he's been held in check somewhat against Dallas, but that doesn't mean that he's not Jaden Daniels' number 1 player and doesn't have the best quarterback he's had in his career period in this situation. So, and then Noah Brown is interesting. He also had a dud, but targets in weeks prior. He actually had more targets than Terry McLaurin in some of these games. He's an option at 4,200 if you wanted to go there. And then Zach Ertz, the other option at 3,800 because he's just going to gobble up targets 7, 8, and 11.
My advice is just essentially if this is a team that you know is going to hit 30 points today, don't worry about the unnatural build of usually, non-pass catch backs like a Brian Robinson, which he can pass catch, but that's just not what he's known for. Just put the points or just get who's going to score the points. And Washington's pretty self-explanatory. If they go for 30, you know who's the reason behind it.
Yeah, for sure. And then let's go over. Hold on 1 second. Washington's actually kind of fascinating today, in my opinion, because I think the pricing is so cheap on them. And like I said, everybody's cheap.
And it's one of the easiest bringbacks you can think of with, again, Luke Schoonmaker being minimum priced.
Yeah, fair.
And we've seen very strong sample sizes the two sample sizes we have of him as a starter or getting the starting work, really hitting value, smashing value, going over 10 points in both of those opportunities. And him being minimum price, he's the highest value on the entire slate, I believe.
Hey, Dustin, I need your Greg Dortch call out for non-Greg Dortch player.
Oh, yeah, because last week we asked that question before our stream made us in prematurely, but Jameson Williams was his answer, and he goes for his 60-yard bomb.
Yeah,
because, again, Detroit, there was a point where first place had 5 Detroit Lions.
No, yeah, they had 5 Detroit players. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, they're going to score 50. And so that's kind of prime example of just
on it. Thanks, man. Jameson Williams did go for 124 last week, touchdown 4. We said if he's going to do it, he's going to have a big play, 64-yard long. There it is. That wasn't surprising if it was going to be his day. Jared Goff, after his 5 interception 2 weeks ago, he goes for 37 and scores the most points of any quarterback. His percentages, look at this, 88, 80, 81, 82. One bad game against Houston. They still win that game. That's crazy. But he's been really, really good. 412 yards. He's just
and most of that came after they were up by 3 touchdowns.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that with the running backs.
Yeah, because last week we were like, we want Detroit. We're going to take a stand on either Jameer or David. I convinced you to do the David. That worked out because he did outscore him and had 2 touchdowns. They scored the first 3 touchdowns, but then Jared Goff scored the next 4. So is what it is. Sometimes you just need the guys that are going to score the points.
They like running the score up. I mean, Jameer and David were very efficient. Just didn't get a ton of touches individually. If they could combine, are you about to lose it?
Yeah.
All right. If they could combine for their points, it would be an insane amount of points for them. They got pulled about, I think, 9 minutes into the 9 minutes left on the clock in the fourth quarter. So there were no more starters, and we got really sad because we were just expecting for it to be a 60-point game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we loved them this week. Again, on the main, I said that I wouldn't be surprised if Indy actually upset them and won today outright. And not many people would be on that side if they believe that. So
look at this guy.
Yeah.
Hear me out. Xavier Legette.
Don't mind it.
Yeah.
That's fun. I will say Adam is returning this week. Very likely. That doesn't really mean a ton for Carolina receivers because it's just kind of a wide open game for them. But yeah, less than 4% owned. That would be a big leverage spot if he ends up winning. And then also receiver as a whole today is really tough to figure out. But it starts with this guy who is going to be one of the most popular plays at the position. He scored in 8 straight games. One of the best streaks of all time. We haven't seen the high target that we were accustomed to seeing last year, where he was 10 to 12 targets every game, sometimes even more than that. I think last week, if you click on his game log, was his first 10-plus target game in a long – I think since week 2. Yeah, week 2, he had the 19. Everything else was under 10 targets. Obviously, they've been playing from ahead, but it doesn't really matter with him. He's really had one dud game all season long. But yeah, this week is a great spot for him once again. Indy is somebody that essentially, unless they're playing bad quarterbacks or bad offenses, they're just able to be scored on in many, many facets. So all Detroit players are on the board. Even though he's the most expensive, I think he's kind of easier to get to, if that even makes any sense, just because there's so many running backs to play. There's not a ton of receivers I feel great about. And so just plugging him in at the top and then figuring out 2 to 3 other running backs in strong spots, that's kind of the way I want to go about it today.
Fair. And then let me clear this. Whoa, why are we down there? And we'll go to the next quarterback. We will talk about Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be kind of brief because we really don't have a ton of players that we want to talk about on this team, except for the running back, of course. DeAndre Hopkins can go in here. He's 5,400. I think that's a reasonable price. There's really, I mean, Xavier Worthy's 5,000. We'll throw him in there.
Corrected for a good reason.
Travis Kelce. So this is our team for KC. There's not much going on, but Patrick Mahomes, second highest quarterbacks wise on the slate. He has not been that great this year. 15 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. They win games, but he has not done MVP-esque, had an MVP-esque season like we thought he would.
The main problem for him, DFS wise, is just he is not getting any of the looks when they go to the 5. They're just like taking the ball out of his hands and letting Kareem Hunt pound it in, or the gadget plays that he's not involved in. But 2 of the last 3 games, he's had 3 touchdowns, so he's kind of starting to heat up a little bit from a fantasy perspective. Obviously, you want to see more than 196 yards, but Buffalo also kind of controlled the clock most of that game for Kansas City, which we have not been accustomed to seeing in a long, long time. That was their first game in, I believe, 40 games that they allowed over 30 points. So it's been a long time since we saw Kansas City look that way, at least defensively, and it kind of rubbed off on Patrick Mahomes. So, but today, great spot. I think it's actually good leverage if you wanted to go with the Kansas City stack, just because a lot of people are going to play Kareem Hunt because, they over before knowing that Pacheco was going to play, predicting he'd be back. Usually DraftKings doesn't do that. They did this week, and so a lot of people are going to play him because of that.
And he's not back. But he's out. So Kareem Hunt is the guy.
Basically, a lot of people, or at least the big 3 of Kelce, Hopkins, and Hunt, are getting ownership, all of them above 14%. But Mahomes himself, less than 10% on the early only. Some leverage today because a lot of people, I bet you north of 20% on the early only slate will play Jaden Daniels. Really, it's Tua and Anthony Richardson and Baker and Tommy DeVito and then Patrick Mahomes. So him and Jared Goff, which Jared Goff is actually 7%, which is crazy to me. But either of those guys being under 10% is great leverage because both of those are my 2 of the best spots on the entire day today.
I mean, that's what we were saying. Like, who of the best? So the spreads on the games tell us how many points we expect to go over,
And honestly,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. And he's not going to project well today, but just worth mentioning, Xavier Worthy, 6% owned on the early only slate. So if I was doing a Pat Mahomes line today, I think I'm going to include him just to be different because everybody that is going to play Patrick Mahomes, if they're going to do a double, is going to be Hopkins and Kelce, or throwing in Kareem Hunt with one or both of them. So getting Xavier Worthy in there, hoping for that big play, Jameson Williams-esque play, I could see that paying off in a big way today.
I was going to bring up Kelsey's game. We talked about him last week, and then he goes for his dud of the year, which is awesome, after going for 3 20-point games. And
that happen when we invest in somebody and we're just like, man, it's all works. It all makes sense. A great matchup. And then just.
Well, I'm not against investing in him again this week. Kareem Hunt will be one of those guys that we're going to have in cash games, of course, because he is just got so much upside at 5,700. I don't understand the pricing by DraftKings. Like you said, they are 10-point favorites against Carolina. That means we should expect the ball to be run as much as possible. He is basically he's a $5 running back. Panthers have nobody that goes to those football games. They have the least amount of crowd percentage based on seats every single week. So I believe KC will probably have more people there. It's even going to feel like a home game in Carolina. So Kareem Hunt's going to be a cash play. Travis Kelce's a solid play. And then our tournament play would be Xavier Worthy on this team for sure.
Yeah. So again, it is the number 1 matchup for running backs is against the Panthers.
Yeah.
This year, Carolina is averaging giving up 24.7 points, and that is just fantasy points, so not including bonuses on DraftKings or FanDuel. 2 points higher than the next worst team. So they've been extremely bad. We're going to target them the rest of the season. A great spot for him. He actually had his dud last week as well in a good environment, but it was also a negative game score for him.
Right.
He goes from 10 targets 1 week to 0 the next week.
Okay,
is what it is. But he's a great opportunity to score a very good amount of points and have a massive return on value today.
Dustin, you got a friend. We got a Cardinals fan in the chat with us. Champy, happy to see you. That's funny. He said go Cards. So
go.
I'm picking Seattle today, Champy, but And
Hey,
the big
that's not going to deter us from playing some Cardinals doubles when we'll talk about the
right
afternoon slate or the main slate. Kyler Murray is one of our favorite quarterbacks today, just
bird
for the
gang.
record.
Okay, let me go over
Red
and
Sea.
grab. Daniel Jones is not on this slate, guys. Just so you know, that should say out.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams though is. We're gonna put him in there. I know that it's a gross, but he is. I mean, 5,100 is so cheap, guys. You have to kind of get over the fact that it looks ugly, and get his good weeks because he has had some good weeks. Let me put DJ Moore in there, who's only 5,500, which is a crazy price. Keenan Allen's 49, and Rome is 48. Lots of options there.
I was really kind of hoping Keenan Allen, I guess, rolled his ankle on Friday, and so that's Q tag is the way it is. It sounds like they're optimistic he'll still play today. I was really hoping that would force him because it would just force us to do, if we did a Caleb line, doing the double of DJ and Roma Dunze,
right?
Which all of that is very cheap and it allows a lot of savings. But it's a great spot. Minnesota has been not great defensively against the pass game this year, and they've kind of been fortunately fell into some very good game environments in recent weeks where it wasn't that impactful. But Caleb Williams has not been playing well. That I'm not going to convince you that he hasn't been playing well. He hasn't scored a touchdown in America in 6 weeks. So
good luck.
Yeah, since week 5. So It's been a long time since he's had a strong game, at least in the States. But last week, obviously, without a touchdown, scoring 16 points, his price is by far season low. If we get 16 points on a $5,100 quarterback, we are very, very happy because that's 3x value. Today, if he is able to be a part of 1 to 2 touchdowns, I still see him hitting at least that line. Mm-hmm. But you saw in weeks 4 through 6 him having the 25-point upside, or at least week 3 through 6. He had 3 games, at least 23 fantasy points. So he's got the upside. Nobody's going to be on him today. He is 6% owned on the early only slate. Every single skill player for Chicago is under 10%.
Yeah.
So really good way to get different. It's very cheap. Nobody wants to go that route, and I'm interested in doing so. And that's despite picking them outright today as an underdog. Just it's a really good game environment. And again, we were just hoping the weather would hold up enough to where at least we could put up some points. And it sounds like it's going to be cold, but it's at least good enough to where we can attack this at least in a good way.
Yeah, home game. DeAndre Swift has been pretty good this year. He's got a Q tag next to his. I expect him to play.
Yeah,
that groin. Yeah, he's been good.
But Minnesota has actually been top 5 against running backs this year, I believe. So again, if you're going to target Chicago today, it's through the pass game.
Not that guy. And then Rome, of course, you can pick your favorite 2 basically
Rome
down here. I would actually say that's exactly what I was going to say. Is Rome has actually been possibly the best player for them recently. And then if you want to go Cole Kmet at 3,600, you could double tight end because you're playing Schoonmaker. It is what it is.
He's just one of those really frustrating, inconsistent usage.
Yeah, Cole Kmet.
Because we've seen 2 touchdown games and we've also seen 0 target games. Kind of got to live and die by it. But if I'm going to go Caleb, I'm probably, because of tight end options that I like up top or way down low, don't really want to go that route. But receiver, because there are not a ton of options that I'm in love with. Just filling out 2 spots with a Chicago double sounds really enticing to me.
Fair enough. Let me switch over to our puke. Okay, so Caleb Williams is puke.
You can puke today.
Caleb Williams is puke. This is like pukier, if that makes sense. This is gross, nasty puke.
Yeah, there's actually 2 minimum price quarterbacks today. Obviously, one is not on this early only slate, but Tommy DeVito, Brandon Allen. Not a great way to have confidence in either one. But for what it's worth, Tampa Bay is dead last against quarterbacks and receivers this year. Tommy DeVito, no points for a reason. He's not that good at football.
He's a guy that lives at home and loves his mom with cooking. Okay,
but
that's what he is.
At the end of the day, if he can just kind of pepper specific receivers with volume, that's kind of what you're hoping for. Malik Neighbors was actually questionable with a groin all week. It sounds like he's going to play. If he didn't play, that wasn't going to deter me because we've seen from Darius Slayton and Juan Dell did miss earlier in this year. But if you get him the 10 targets and let Malik Neighbors work, it's a low owned play that is in a good spot. That's kind of the way we got to play it. Tommy DeVito, at least in the early only, has close to 10% ownership. It's actually the identical ownership to Baker Mayfield, who obviously playing today. But Malik Neighbors 15%, and then everybody else below 10 on the early only slate. And Wandell is 5, and Darius Slayton, which somebody I brought up in the first look, he's a guy that is 4,600. Nobody wants to get to because he's not going to project well. He's 3% early only, so he's a 1%er that you saw the 100-yard game against Pittsburgh. You saw 11 target 122-yard game. That was one of the games that Malik Neighbors missed.
Yeah,
he's got boom upside, and just kind of one of those uncomfortable ways that nobody's going to play is just why it's worth bringing up. I don't know if we're going to end up being able to stomach doing a minimum price quarterback in our 5 main builds today. But if we do, we're going to be uncomfortable.
I think early only, though, I'm not against doing it. And one thing I will say, and I talked about this on the main video from Wednesday or Thursday. In that video, I said Tommy DeVito not playing all year, it doesn't have chemistry with possibly Malik Neighbors and Theo Johnson. He might go to his guys that are, Wandale and Darius, who have been there for a lot longer. He's played with. He might be more comfortable with those guys, so they might get the targets, even knowing Malik Neighbors is here. If I were to say, hey, I think Wandale's going to have 10 targets today. If he gets 10 targets and you play Tommy DeVito and that's your only stack in that game, look at the pricing you just got, $9,200 for your quarterback and your first receiver. Mm-hmm. I think that is a reasonable idea. Plus, there are so many good bringbacks on Tampa Bay this week that you're going to have to possibly that'll be a way you could do in the Millie Maker. It might be a Tommy DeVito +1 and then a double bring back on the other side.
Yeah, so the one thing with this game is that there are some wins. So it doesn't sound like it'll be a wet game, but at least windy enough to where, kicking game / deep balls could be affected.
Right.
But again, we're peppering targets. That's kind of what we're interested in. Tyrone Tracy is somebody I might be uncomfortable how low owned I'll get to him today because of so many good running back spots. But he was one of the first names that stuck out to me when I did my first scroll through this week, early Monday morning, just because it's like, man, he's been getting RB1-esque usage.
Right.
And I don't think that even though he did prior to the bye have 2 fumbles, cost the game against the Panthers, I didn't think that would be something that the Giants would just, we're just going to play Devin Singletary the rest of the year.
For sure.
Or it'd be a frustrating usage. Since Devin Singletary returned, Tracy has still had 20 touch upside. He has done well in that upside, and he is a potential league winner going forward because of the way he's being used, and they're just going to just give him and Malik Neighbors the rock the rest of the year.
For sure. I did want to ask the chat. We're going to build a line. We're going to start with Jaden Daniels as our first guy. We're going to talk about running backs, but we're going to use Jaden Daniels as our first guy in our line build. And then I want to have y'all tell us who y'all want us to build the second line with out of the guys we talked about, out of the 5 we talked about. So y'all just let us know. You will have some time because we are going to go over running backs though first. Some of the let me go ahead and clear this and then go out of these because there are some running backs on teams that we are not talking about yet.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier some of the high-owned running backs. 2 of the 3 highest owned isn't people that we're getting to. Joe Mixon is the first guy that is for that. He's just 8,000, most expensive, at least on the early only slate, and he's projecting really well.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee, okay matchup, but he just is scoring all the touchdowns. He has receiving upside. Obviously 4 targets in 3 of the last 4 games at least. Identical receiving yardage in the last 2. And he's got 3 touchdown upside. He's been killing it, crushing it. And I'm very sad that we didn't have more exposure to him in best ball.
He has 11 touchdowns on the year. He's a pretty good football player, and we weren't sure because he didn't have a ton of, like when he was at Cincinnati, he was good, but like we weren't sure if that was just because he had no one fighting volume. It was all volume, yeah. Fighting for it's still volume, don't get me wrong, but he's been more efficient since he got to Houston. I think they fit him better. Right. Like their style of play fits him better. And the next guy we'll talk about, Achane. He's a running back at home against Miami. He has receiving upside. He's basically the wide receiver 2 in this offense, and he's got 25 plus upside every week. So
yeah, I mean he's his receiving usage, at least we had multiple weeks where we were targeting his receiving props because he was getting at least 50 yards a game and all the touches and targets he was doing. It's kind of come down in recent weeks, but that hasn't really deterred him. He still had 21 opportunities last week. He scored a touchdown. Obviously over 20 points in 3 of the last 4 weeks. He is the most popular flex play today, but he's only 24% on main. He's 34% in the early only. I don't think that he's somebody that we can fade, at least in this contest.
Right.
And probably going to have at least 3 builds with him on the main, maybe even 4.
Yeah, he's a pretty exciting guy, and with the pricing, how the pricing is, you can get to him pretty easily.
And then for what it's worth, obviously, Raheem Mostert missed a couple weeks. He came back, and his snap share is just dwindling down and down. And they're actually giving Jalen Wright more work, and it isn't affecting Devon Achane nearly as much. He's still been 60 to 70% of the snap share. Jalen Wright and actually had 26% of the snaps last week, which is a season best with both of them playing, Achane and Mostert. Mostert had 15% of the snaps back-to-back weeks. 2 weeks ago on the showdown, he didn't even have a carry.
Yeah.
In a good game environment where they were not trailing, they were winning the whole game, and he still didn't have a carry, which is crazy because his potential this year, we were thinking would just be at the detriment of Achane being a touchdown vulture.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what he was last year, scoring 20 touchdowns. But we were off him from the very jump this year because of his age and just 1 year wonder-esque season.
21 touchdowns,
and
in
that
1
was
year.
one of the easier calls that we did nail. Was Mostert's downfall. But getting back to Achane, he's just great spot, great game environment, bottom 10 against running backs, and their favorites all the 9 yards. And there's a reason why he's the most popular play on this league.
We talked about Jahmyr Gibbs. He's a guy that we want to get to. Cam does believe that it's possible that Indy does win this game. I think that that's a stretch because Indy has been so bad, but it's the type of team that I think could win this game because of the fact that they have such a very weird quarterback, obviously.
Well,
but Jonathan Taylor has been good.
The thing is, they go back to Anthony Richardson last week, and he has by far his best game of the season. They actually win as a dog on the road against the Jets, which I know the Jets have been bad, but the Jets just came off their win against Houston, and or actually they were losing. They got blown out against Arizona the week before.
Yeah.
But still, very solid win. And then the week before, they were actually playing Buffalo tough, but they had just too many turnovers in their own territory, and that's kind of what had them playing catch up the rest of the way. But they've been close game against Minnesota, close game against Houston, then winning against the Jets. I don't think they've been playing as bad as you are saying. But at the same time, they're a sneaky team that I actually think will get one of the wild card spots. And so, and especially if they end up winning today, obviously this doesn't have anything implications on tiebreakers, but AFC as a whole is down in the win total. And they right now are in the playoffs at 5-6. So I see it potentially staying that way. Regardless, with Indy, it's really tough to have a ton of confidence in any skill player because, again, Anthony Richardson's low volume is just something that it's hard to trust any of the receivers. Michael Pittman has been a dud this year. Obviously, he's still banged up. He is going to play today. Josh Downs has been the best, but he went down to, I believe, 6 targets last week. He still returned value, but just now he's 6,200.
Right.
6 targets. It's kind of tough to get. Detroit's been much worse this year against running backs than we at least saw last year.
Since Aiden Hutchinson has gone down,
especially
they've been much
Aiden
worse.
Yeah. They've allowed 80+ yards to a lot of elite running backs, and Jonathan Taylor coming off he's got all the volume, 25 touches in the last 2. He's 20 touches outside every single week. Decent environment, and I think he might get lost in the shuffle because of all the great matchups today. He's actually showing 14% ownership in the early only contest. I actually think that's too high. I think he'll be less than 10%, and he's a really good leverage spot. I don't know if he's somebody we will get to today,
enough, yeah,
but
for sure,
it's a decent spot. And if I think Indy at least has a chance to not get blown out like they're
52-6,
52-6. He's in a good spot as long as the game stays close.
Yeah, we have a question. DeAndre Hopkins potentially against Carolina from NFL Village. I would say that we did talk about KC a little while ago. So if you wanted to, you could scroll back. But there are a lot of really good plays on KC, and Kareem Hunt will be a cash value play. Travis Kelce coming off a bad week last week, but he's in a good spot also. And then Xavier Worthy is a tournament play. DeAndre Hopkins, we might not play him today, but I don't think he's a bad play in any means. He's just they are playing against Carolina, but you have to be trustworthy of like Patrick Mahomes and that whole thing too.
I think he's in a solid spot. He's too cheap.
Yeah.
If you're talking about just fantasy football, you got to start him as a flex today, unless you just have really strong depth. My thing is he might be my fourth favorite Chief, just because of either value or what direction I'm trying to go. Again,
what we expect of the game.
Exactly. When we were talking Patrick Mahomes stacks earlier, I just feel like if people are going to double, everybody's going to do Kelce and Hopkins.
Yeah.
Or them plus Hunt. Hunt's going to be popular as well today. Nobody's on Xavier Worthy for good reason, because his volume has been low. But him being 6% owned and having a Jameson Williams-esque boom,
right?
I actually prefer that leverage instead of DeAndre Hopkins. But that's just a gut call. That's not necessarily, I don't have stats to back it up. Call.
Right. I mean, I think I can actually check Roto, what the optimizer says. I think he's one of the higher values at wide receiver right now. Yeah, he's the second highest value at wide receiver. So obviously a fine play, not against him. But I just think we're going to be trying to get to more Detroit and more Washington and those types of games. So we might just not get to him, because if we are playing Kareem Hunt, I don't necessarily want to play DeAndre Hopkins. And let me grab that value actually on Kareem Hunt, because I know it's insane. Where are you, Kareem? Let's see.
He's not actually projected incredibly well.
Wow, that's crazy.
12.39.
He's actually lower projected value-wise than DeAndre Hopkins.
If that was his prop projection for a fantasy score, I would hammer that.
Yes.
But I believe his prop is actually
higher. Yeah.
It's 15.
Yeah, so that makes way more sense to me.
I'm not touching that, but that is what I expected his projection to be.
Yeah, exactly.
On Roto, which was interesting.
So
but his ownership is still high, regardless of whatever his projection is showing on Roto.
Yeah, so naturally we will build without DeAndre Hopkins. If we're going to get a Chief, it'll be Kareem Hunt more often than not. But going back to the slate, Tyron Tracy is our next guy on the board. 6,000 is too cheap. We talked about him a little bit with Tommy DeVito, but he's still too cheap. Got to re-mention him. He's been so good when he is playing. So. And then the pair of the triplet, just kidding, of Kareem Hunt, Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson, all options on this slate. We've talked about them a little bit, but Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson, it's just so much. There's just too many.
I also want to bring up Rachaad White and Bucky Irvin, because they're in good spots as favorites. They're also too cheap. They also have a ton of pass catching upside. And then also if the win's a factor, that's just going to help them even more.
Right.
But also, I can't gloss over Tony Pollard, because though it's not a great matchup and they are a touchdown dog, Tajay Spears is out. And we saw sample sizes of him without Tajay Spears and getting 30 touches opportunities. He also has pass catching upside as well. Ownership wise, I don't think that he's really that popular because of all the plays. It's showing 13% on early only.
He's one of the highest values, though.
Yeah, he is one of the highest values. He's projecting really, really well, despite the matchup. He's worth a look, and he's in the player pool, but he might just kind of be X'd out, because you see 32nd against running backs, 29th against running backs. Obviously the Giants 21st.
Yeah.
So that's just going to aesthetically look better in lines than putting a top 5 run game defense.
For sure. And then going down, we talked about obviously these 3 guys, but there's more. Don't you worry. We have Rachaad White, Bucky Irving. Pick your favorite Tampa Bay running back. They are both going to be pretty highly owned, I feel like, because they are playing the Giants, giving up
Bucky Irvin's actually the more popular play today at 10%.
Yeah, I think that
Rachaad White's actually only at 7, but both of them projected 10 or 11 fantasy points. In terms of snap counts, I'm actually interested to see what they've been doing in recent weeks, because Rachaad White has had less rushing volume, but he has had a ton of touchdowns in recent weeks. But he's still 60% of snaps in the 3 straight weeks. Bucky Irvin is hovering, between 40 to 45.
Mm-hmm.
They're both in play. I don't think they'll be as owned either. So both in good spots.
Yep. And then there's one more guy. Vegas is on the other slate. Just kidding. I'm not going to put him here. That's not the right slate. So let's make a line.
Yeah. And
Jaden Daniels will be our first guy.
NFL Village says he's scared of going Worthy. I understand that call.
Well, it just depends. If you're playing cash games, don't play Worthy.
Yeah.
If you're playing cash games, don't play Worthy. Play your Kareem Hunts. Play your DeAndre Hopkins, because you do have good value based on what the projection shows. But if you are playing a tournament, Worthy is an option for sure.
Exactly.
Because he
Like,
has Jameson
we,
Williams
we
upside.
like playing the ownership game. So if we're playing 5 lines and we have him in one, we're triple the field of him.
Right, exactly.
So, and it might be even more on the main because he's only 6% on the early only.
Mm.
Guys like that we had a Marvin Harrison call earlier in the year where he's coming off a 1 target game against Buffalo and he's 3% owned because his price didn't move. And we were just like, we need one line with him. And he ends up scoring 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, less than 3% owned. And we had 1 line out of 5 with him, but we were 8x the field because of that. So he's an ownership play today. That's the simplest way I can put it. I can't back it up with stats or numbers. It's just kind of way I want to manipulate the field because a lot of people are going to be on Kansas City today.
Exactly. Looking at our first look, we're going to start with this grouping.
Yes.
For sure. This is our stack with our bring back and Schoonamaker. Did you want to double this look?
Yeah, I want Brian Robinson.
Okay.
I don't know if I can avoid him on the early slate.
That's fair. I completely agree with that.
While you're down there.
Oh, well, where am I? What do you need down here?
Yeah,
do you want Tracy?
Kareem Hunt.
Kareem Hunt. Yeah. Okay, if we're building cash, these are the guys you want to start with, I feel like. Brian Robinson, you could make a case that you want to get off of him if you are going to play Terry McLaurin, just to go maybe to Tyron Tracy or 5,700 to Tony Pollard, whoever you want in that range. But I would say that this is a very solid start.
Yeah.
Detroit.
Defense-wise, my first thought when I looked at defenses this week was Chicago at 25 was too cheap, especially because Minnesota started to turn the ball over. And I also am picking them to upset today. But we have failed twice this year on a chalky Chicago.
Yeah.
To, return value. We had them as a cheap chalk play, and they just didn't have any stats. And
20%.
Yeah. So they're the highest owned defense. And that kind of scares me a lot more than I want to admit.
Yeah, that's fair. I agree. Let's pick a different one.
Okay. So
Tennessee's 2,300. I think that's interesting just for a price. But I would say that you could probably pay up on this slate with all the cheap players in general.
Yeah, I think we'll have some ways to save some salary and get up. Is there a defense in the 3,000s that really kind of stands out to you?
The Bucks.
Yeah, that was my answer as well. Being 6% owned, kind of middle of the pack.
Crazy.
It's Tommy DeVito.
Yeah, against the Giants.
Yeah, basically plant your game script, and if you think it will be a closer game, then don't play Tampa Bay's defense and play more Giants. But if you don't have confidence in playing Giants, then you have to have confidence in playing Tampa.
Would you like to stack the running back with the defense on this one?
I don't know if I do.
Okay, well that's fine. What wide receiver? Or well, we have to play a Detroit player. Do you just want to throw?
Yeah, I want to put in a Amon-Ra.
Okay. Do you want an indie player in this line or
no?
5,400.
I think as a standalone is fine.
Okay.
5,400. Do you want to go up top to somebody? Oh, we have to put an HN.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we do. Mm-hmm.
Hello, Mr. HN. What do I got? 33. Is that reasonable?
That's just short of Keyshawn Boutte, which is the highest value on the slate. Kind of a little uncomfortable from there.
I'm not a highest value on the slate is 3,300.
3,500 Boutte.
Oh, so can we go down at defense?
Yeah, we might
have to. 3,100. Dolphins
Dolphins
versus New England.
That would
versus
correlate a little bit.
Versus New England. Not against that.
Yep.
Let's do that. And then we'll go Boutte.
31.
Whoa. Not 35.
Perfect.
So this is our first look. Love where we start. That's it. I mean, yeah, I enjoy that.
That's a great cash build because you have the popular Amon-Ra. Boutte is the highest value. Schoonmaker is going to be popular. HN is the most popular on the slate.
Kareem Hunt
and Robinson will have over 15%. And then Jaden Daniels is the most popular quarterback. That's the cash game.
Yeah. Let's do something more fun though, because cash is great and all, but I want to win millions of dollars.
Okay.
So let's go pick a different quarterback that has some less ownership overall.
So because I believe they have similar ownership between Mahomes. Well, Mahomes is at 9. Caleb Williams is at 6.6.
Okay.
Is doing a double with either one, which one interests you more?
Between the two, doing a double. Oh, well, I mean, I guess Patrick Mahomes interests me more, but at the same time, we're leaving out Jared Goff, and I think I'd rather go there if I'm going to go into that range. The
problem with Jared Goff is just paying $6,000 for Jameson Williams.
Well, I'll just pick a running back.
Okay, well that's fine. Again, last week you could have played 5 Detroit players and you would have been right.
Yes.
So if you think Detroit's scoring over 30 again, do the same thing. So, is your favorite Detroit player outside of Amon-Ra also Jahmyr Gibbs?
It would be.
Okay,
But I do want to pull up Green's game log. He's actually gotten a lot of targets.
11 touchdowns.
Touchdowns is very good, but a lot of targets. So that makes him viable as a stackable player. Jahmyr Gibbs, on the other hand, had some dud weeks in the targets.
But he's been efficient with his
54.
Yeah, he's just getting 3 or less in 4 straight, so it's tough. But yeah, draft player. I'm
not going to bring back. I think this is a blowout. And this is how I'm writing the script.
But I want you to click on HN because, again, at least in early only, I can't avoid him. And then
so Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Defense special. Yeah. So basically, Kareem Hunt or Brian Robinson. Which one did you prefer? Actually, yeah.
Kareem Hunt.
Which one you prefer, Kareem?
I just don't like the 50. He's going to get 75% of the snaps. Well, Brian Robinson's getting 53, which is
that's fair.
But efficiency wise, Brian Robinson actually has been more efficient, I believe, overall.
Yeah, ownership wise, Kareem Hunt is actually 1% less owned.
Well, give me him then.
So
easy.
That's fine.
That's easy.
That's a good tiebreaker.
And then defense, I will just throw in the chalky. Well, not even chalky yet. They will be chalkier in Bucks.
You would think, right?
Now, let's do something different. I have no money. Holy hell!
Put in Schoon and that'll fix your problems.
Oh yeah, love that guy.
Well, it'll help a little bit, but we're still gonna need to go low.
I figured out a way to get to him quickly. he's so cheap. Okay, and then what do I have? Right, 44. Okay, let's go down.
If we went to Boots,
where's Dustin's favorite player?
What was his call again?
It was
Xavier
Legette. Oh, he's 5,000. Gross. It's not a bad tournament play like you wanted to get to, Dustin, though. I'm not against the tournament side of that.
His ownership is less than 5% on the early only. So I love the call.
That's fun.
Don't know if I can get to him, but I guess putting in Butte is to get up to somebody in the 5K range.
5,300 should be oh, wait. Am I short? No. Oh, I'm out of flexes. That's cool. I'm out of flexes. I'm going to take Jahmyr Gibbs out. So I'm going to do it.
Whoa. Okay.
Sorry. Not sorry.
So we're single stacking Jerry Goff.
We are. We're going to single stack him in this one.
But if we're playing the blowout game.
Yeah, but I can just go ahead and points out of this guy.
That's fair, but you also are missing the 20 plus points out of the other three.
Yeah. 6,000 Jameson Williams.
No.
6,600 gives me who? Nobody I want.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the 6,600 give me anything? No.
If you went back to Miami again, I have an idea.
Go ahead. Tell me.
So you could go to DJ Moore as a standalone play.
DJ Moore.
At 5,500.
Okay.
And then going down to Miami would give you enough to go with a Jahmyr Gibbs.
I see.
Or if you wanted to, but again, you're playing the blowout game. Otherwise, I could have been saying Jonathan Taylor as a bring back. But yeah, that was my idea. Or putting in Hopkins instead of Hunt as the stand. No.
Just for Dustin.
Too much.
Just for Dustin. Okay. Yeah, I would actually, what I was thinking of doing was going, instead of going with DJ Moore, going to Rome.
Okay.
In a similar spot.
Who's the highest
Chicago
price defense? Kansas City.
Kansas
City.
Still
couldn't get to
or
them.
Detroit.
I don't want Detroit.
But I don't want Detroit
today.
But if I am playing the blowout game,
Houston's interesting actually against Tennessee. Just for what it's worth. If you wanted to get up to them instead of Tampa, they're actually the same ownership essentially.
Talk about a tournament play.
A.D. Mitchell's one target a game.
Yeah, for 50 yards and a touchdown. Okay, let's stay here. I was just seeing if I had 500 for somebody, but I think I think this is a good tournament line.
I think if price didn't matter, I might prefer Houston over Tampa.
It's fine
because at least I know Houston has.
If I have the money,
defensive statistic, exactly.
I have the money,
and on top of that, both of them under 10%. I actually think that their ownership will flip to where Tampa Bay will be more popular.
Fair.
So despite having 500 remainder, being less duped, I think Houston will be lesser owned of the two defenses.
Fair. But yeah, so this is our starting points for our early only slate. It also, of course, trickles into Maine. We're going to talk about a lot of these same guys in Maine. They're going to be played. But yeah, so let me clear this. Let me go to the afternoon, because we are actually kind of behind on time.
That's fine.
But afternoon's only 3 games. We'll have plenty of time. We'll be able to run through that one pretty quickly.
We do currently because let's keep on football lines. If you haven't already liked the stream, please do, just to help us out. It costs nothing, and it just goes a long way to help us get support, the algorithm, and grow as a community.
There are going to be 2 quarterbacks on this slate that we're going to talk about. We did take off. We had 3 originally, but we did take one off. Going to Arizona and going to San Francisco. Well, we have a free square. 6,200 for Kyler Murray is where we're going to start this. I believe that'll make Dustin happy. And then going to wide receiver. I mean, why is Marvin Harrison $6,100? Guys,
I'm saying
for the boom games, you have to keep him at 6,600. We can't do this, because if he does go off, he will be absolutely needed in your line.
I've said it 3 different times this year where his price has gone down and he had no ownership because of it, or not because of it, but
because
with
of the prior week.
And I'm like, this is the week.
Yes.
And every single time that happened, and I had that feeling, he has scored a touchdown. This week, he's actually has ownership, at least in the afternoon, but it's only a 3-game slate. So him being 36% isn't crazy to me. Plus, the receiver position as a whole is just wide open on this slate.
He has upside, though. He's scored 32 points, 17, 15. He's got 26 points against Miami. Like, especially if you think Arizona is going to win this game. It is the worst weather game on the slate, like we talked about earlier, just because of rain, not even weather, true weather. But he is an option, absolutely, as a tournament play. You just said he had good ownership, though, so that's kind of sad.
Well, again, receiver, there's not a must play. Every single receiver is 6,600 and below,
right?
And every single receiver, like the most popular receiver is Courtland Sutton. So it's at 42%, and there's 6 guys that are at least 30% owned outside of him. So basically, everything's kind of spread out between all these guys in the mid tier, and it's just kind of picking your favorites of those guys.
Yep. Let's see rushing upside that you want to see. 2 touchdowns last week gave him that 28 point. His ceiling, though, is above 30, so don't just think that's where it ends. He does have 300 passing yard upside too. I just think in this game, if you're going to get Seattle winning, like I think that they could be winning, you might want Kyler Murray on the other side throwing the ball.
Yeah, I mean, with him, it's been a little frustrating with the inconsistency as a fantasy play. He used to be one of the safest, like he's going to get you 18 every week, but he also has the 30. This year, he's got 5-point games. He's got 12-point games. He's got, other duds as well, but he's also got the 30-point game. And then, 3 of the last 4, he's had at least 20. He's, to me, the safest quarterback today. Geno Smith is the one that is the much more popular option. They're basically projected the same, but Geno being 500 cheaper, I think, is why a lot of people are flocking that way. But yeah, he's the one that stands out, unless you want to go with a Bo Nix, who has been absolutely on fire.
Yeah,
recently.
I was going to say Bo Nix is, and I was actually going to ask you who scares you the most on this slate, and it's definitely Bo Nix. Yeah, Bo Nix is a pretty scary player on this slate because of the fact that it's a 3-gamer, and he really doesn't need to do that much, but he is, I want to say, more expensive than he's been.
Yeah, he's 63. I think that's the season high.
So he scares me a little bit.
Yeah, 2 straight chalky Bo Nix weeks has crushed, and we did not expect that. The problem is just every single receiver is scoring a touchdown,
right?
And it's really hard to nail the consistent play other than Courtland Sutton, who's been crushing it since his no target game against the Saints.
Yeah,
he's been very, very safe. And then, I mean, we talked about Audric Estime last week as a cheap guy, and we were like, he's going to start getting more snaps and stuff. And then all of a sudden, Javonte just goes right back to a 52% snap share.
Straight after.
But opportunity-wise, he doubled them, essentially. The biggest thing I want to see is Jaleel McLaughlin getting the hell out of the game and just letting it be Audric Estime and Javonte Williams as a 1A1.
As it should be.
That's what it should be.
Yeah, for sure. No, completely agree with that. Gary, I'm happy to see you here. Taylor also. Gary, I need you to get in an argument with Dustin for no reason. And then I also need you to go wake up your roommate so he can be in the chat, because he needs to get here also.
Both roommates.
Oh, yeah. If they're, where are they? 10-15. We give them plenty of time here. But yeah, looking at this team though, I will talk about Michael Wilson has scored some touchdowns. He's got like minimal target for a couple touchdowns this year, 3 on the year. Greg Dortch, because we have to talk about Greg Dortch because that's in our chat. He was
what's interesting is that Jones, who's been known as like an outside receiver essentially throughout his career, was started the season on IR, missed the first 6 weeks, and then has been kind of playing low in snaps. He actually vaulted to 40 or 39% last week, and it's at the detriment of Greg Dortch, not Michael Wilson.
Right.
So Greg Dortch is coming off his season low of only 25% of the snap share. So I actually don't have the slot snaps in front of me to kind of see who's sliding inside.
I'd have to go
with those.
Check it.
But essentially, if you're doing a double today, I think I would pick 2 of the 3 options between Connor, Harrison, and McBride, because I know if Arizona is scoring, it's probably because Trey McBride's fumbles touchdowns because
he can't catch them.
He won't get last week he missed but he was missed on a wide open touchdown opportunity. They've also been blowing out teams in the last 2 weeks, so it's been very bad game scripts for him. Only getting 9 targets, but he has been the safest target earner this year. But again, he's not seeing it, but he's still averaging 13 fantasy points a game, despite only 1 rushing touchdown and 1 fumble recovery touchdown. He's going to score at some point, and I'm actually picking him to do that today.
Okay. Well, then I guess he will have to be in your line if you're playing Kyler. Gary said over under Steiger 10:59 a.m. Place your bids. I said over. Yeah, it's a win-win, because if he gets here earlier, then we have him here.
He's just gonna say good morning and then leave the chat again. We actually got 20 in the lobby right now.
That's awesome. I love to see that. We're gonna go over to the next quarterback because he's free.
Yeah,
it's gonna be Brandon Allen for the San Francisco 49ers. Christian McCaffrey has to go in there. He is possibly the best football player, best flex football player we're gonna see for a long time. Just has so much upside in the pass game and everything. Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, and then of course George Kittle, who's been the most consistent of the tight ends this season.
He actually missed last week due to a hamstring injury. He is back this week. I don't really have concern with him him playing or re-aggravating or anything. We've actually had a history this year, at least, of people coming off hamstring injuries and then instantly producing despite having reduced snap shares.
Yes.
So I'm not that concerned with him. Debo, I just want to point out, has been awful this year. Not just from a fan perspective, he is an able player, and he is going to be cut at the end of the season because his contract is starting to kick in. They just signed Brandon Ayuk, and Juwan Jennings is balling. Ricky Pearsall, they just drafted in the first round. He is no longer a 49er after this year. It's really tough to trust him fantasy-wise. He's really only had 1 boom game, and that was Seattle on a 60-plus yard touchdown, and then he didn't do anything after that, essentially. Only had 117 yards. But after his big start, he had 100 yards in the second quarter and then really didn't touch the ball after that.
For sure.
He's injury prone. He hasn't been playing well. He's punching kickers in the face when they miss field goals. Like, he's just not being a good teammate right now, and he just won't be a 49er anymore.
Yep. One thing I will say, and we talked about this during the offseason a lot when we were talking about the Ayuk craziness and whatnot, but Debo going to his next team, we've talked about him possibly being overpaid, being that situation where he's not as good as, and it's going to hurt him as a complete football player for his career, which will be really sad in my opinion, because I've always thought he's been a really good player. This year, obviously showing his age, and from here on, he's going to probably get overpaid for what he used to be able to do.
Yeah, let me look at his
pricing.
Not pricing wise, but his PFF grade. I know receivers usually get inflated. Actually at a 75, but obviously receivers are some of those that have higher receiving grades. But yeah, he just hasn't been good this year. Sure. And even if I went the Brandon Allen route this week, he's probably my least favorite 49er.
That's fair.
To be honest.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely fair. The guy that I do want to talk about is George Kittle. He's on the board. I did want to say something before I go, though. Dustin did say should have been cut immediately after the kicker incident. Unacceptable. That's amazing, Dustin. George Kittle, been super efficient, gets a ton of targets. He's been really good. He has the most, I believe he's the number 1 tight end in fantasy between him and Brock Bowers. It's very close.
At least per game.
Yeah.
Total wise, I think because he's missed 2 games that
Brock
might have passed him.
Fair enough.
Kittle's still leading all tight ends in touchdowns by a wide margin, I believe. So yeah, he's been incredible this year, which we love to see because he's our favorite tight end.
Yep. Add him in your stacks with Brandon Allen if you're going to play him. I think you can single stack Brandon Allen, but it's a little bit harder on this early slate because you do have a 4,700 Ricky Pearsall. He did miss. He did have last week and no points, but the week before you can see that he has opportunities, 17.3. And then if you just want to get the chalk, I think Joel will be the chalkiest because he is getting 16.3 and 25.1 respectively in the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, last week, Juwan Jennings was the most popular receiver.
That was crazy.
That's just crazy. But just ugly chalk has just been working in recent weeks. And obviously, he had back-to-back 11 target games. Ricky Pearsall, I think, went over last week. We played him a little bit, which was upsetting.
Mm-hmm.
But again, Brandon Allen, don't know if you can really get behind anything, but really CMC has to be a part of that. And just picking your favorite instead of not Debo.
Non-Debo, favorite guy, yeah. All right.
He's still due for a touchdown as well. In a good game environment because Green Bay has been decimated against elite running backs this year.
Gary, you ready for San Francisco to win? I think, well, you almost picked them, I believe, earlier in the week, right?
If Gary, has a loss to Auburn and then a Brandon Allen 49er team, I think we might have to do
and Texas State.
Yeah,
he went to Texas State before that.
We might need to do a welfare check on him.
I support him, but honestly, I know that. Well, I appreciate the support. We are both picking Green Bay outright this week, but yes, I completely agree. Let's make a line.
Let's do it.
What do you want to start with?
Kyler Murray.
Perfect.
Trey McBride.
Kyler Murray.
And Mr. Marvin Harrison.
Trey.
I'm actually interested.
Maserati.
I want to get your thoughts on this because we haven't talked to any Seattle players yet.
JSN.
I'm actually interested. Well, yeah, you kind of spoiled it, but I was actually interested in a double bring back for this game. And it starts with Kenneth Walker, who's in a great matchup. It's also bad weather and all that. Not bad weather. Well, semi-bad weather, but,
right.
Wet football weather, and it's a good matchup. And then also JSN,
yes,
who actually has been a target hog in recent weeks. He had back-to-back, I believe, games. Or 13 against the Rams. Obviously, that was without DK Metcalf, but 7 for 180 and 2 scores was very, very, very fun to watch. And then had a 25-point game last week, back-to-back 100-yard games. He's just starting to finally get opportunities like we know and love and know he's capable of doing.
And he's good at football.
He's really
good.
That
doesn't hurt. Yeah, he's my favorite bring back on the week out of all the players.
But I might make you do both.
Okay, that's fine. Let's.
It's a 3-gamer, so
I'm not against it. Is there anybody else you think you have to have?
Have to? Not necessarily. Again, all these 5K, low 6K receivers are really enticing. Jaden Reed being at 59.
Mm-hmm.
Last week they were very bad game environment, so he only had 2 targets, but very, very strong play to me today. Cortland Sutton has been Mr. Consistency with Denver. With how it is. Not ruling out DK Metcalf.
Fair.
We're just preferring the other 2 options. And then, all these Juwan Jennings been strong. And so basically mixing and matching is kind of where I want to go. I want to actually put in Green Bay's defense just to that's really the only defense that really stood out to me. Obviously, they're also playing Brandon Allen. Not a strong play, but if you can't get to Denver, that's really the only defense that I'm interested in.
Fair enough. I will say, though, I do kind of want to play Christian McCaffrey. So that hurts your defense if you do that. But it just makes the most sense on this slate,
I will
in my opinion.
James Conner, McCaffrey, and Ken Walker all evenly at 53% owned. So basically, most people are playing 2 of the 3.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of the direction I want to try to go if we can.
Gary did say, shout out Max Verstappen for winning 4 straight, I believe. Made up for all the pain. That is hilarious. I believe they raced it like 1 a.m. though, so I don't think you watched it. That's crazy.
Had a 2 a.m. UFC lock.
Yeah, UFC on Saturday.
1 a.m. race. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, it was a hell of a week. I sure did. I want to put Jacoby Myers into this, and at 5,100, he is, I believe, the highest value on the slate for receiver.
Yeah, and he actually had a decent game. Click on his game log because numbers aren't coming to mind. He had a 13-point game last time against Denver. Yeah, I'm so good.
13. Well, that was with. Oh well, no, I guess that Devontae was gone. in week 5?
Yeah, he was injured. He wasn't
Oh,
traded
that's right.
yet,
That's right. That's
but
right. Mhm.
yeah, he hadn't played since I believe week 3
Yes.
for the Raiders. But yeah, that's fine as a play.
Gives us some money, but
Yeah,
I
so
can't.
try to put in Walker and McCaffrey, and
It's not possible.
you're right. It's not.
It would be. It would be. Hold on. Who's a cheap? Do we have a free square at tight end?
I don't think on this slate we do.
Come on, man. There's got to be one,
let's
right?
see.
Is there a tight end free square? Is there a tight end that we think could get one catch?
Oh, I'm on the main.
Oh. Lucas Kroll? Who are you?
Who are you? He's been leading Denver in tight end snaps this year.
And then Pharaoh Brown is the only other one. Is Noah Fant playing?
No,
He's
Fant
questionable.
is questionable.
Hey,
I think he's a true game time decision.
Hear me out. Noah Fant's out. You throw in
AJ Barner, but he's 33, I think.
AJ Barner's 32. Yeah, I was gonna say you throw in Mr. Pharaoh Brown for one catch.
Pharaoh Brown.
It's possible.
Let's see, because I know Noah Fant missed last week, so let me see what 37 snaps.
But he
did
not catch.
Tough stuff.
I really wish we had a Luke Schoonamaker on this slate, because then this line would be beautiful.
Well, what if we went off of Christian? Is that possible?
Who who do you want?
Let's see. Well, you're on the
what am I doing here?
I think you have the Arizona game selected.
Nope.
You don't.
That's all that's left.
No, that's not true.
Amir.
Oh, no, you're filtered by game. That's why.
Oh, not salary.
Yeah.
Okay. We're putting Amir in.
Amir? Okay. So that was somebody that I knew I wanted to bring up to, because both Zamir White and Alex Madison are unlikely to play. Amir Abdullah by default next man up.
Yes.
But also Dylan Lobb. A lot of best ball late round dreamers hoping that he could get. He's basically pulling no ownership, and he's been unpriced. He's 0.6% owned on this afternoon slate. So I'm not saying let's be different that far, but
yes, no, I don't disagree with that. I think this is more of a cash build though, as I'm looking at it.
Amir's only 11%, so that's not crazy. But I just like the fact Dylan Lobb's actually less 2% owned on the afternoon. I was filtered on main.
Gary wants Tucker Kraft. I don't want Tucker Kraft on.
I actually want Jaden Reed
this slate. Yeah, I was gonna say
opinion, my humble.
Well, what can we get? Opinion. Oh, we can get DK. So we'll just go all Seattle and all Arizona.
I think
Jaden Reed would be the best here.
Reed and Cortland Sutton.
Don't do that.
What if we took out Jacoby Myers because of that, and we play both of them?
We could do that.
That sounds fun.
Okay.
That's fun.
Not against that. Not in any way.
No 49ers, no
craziness.
Raider. No, we have Raider, but I think that's pretty fun.
That is fun. Okay.
And if you prefer, Juwan Jennings over one of those two, then
I'm gonna destroy this for the people.
Okay.
Not for myself, for the people. I'm gonna destroy it. We'll go Amir still. I do want to put Christian McCaffrey in it real quick.
Okay.
So we can get this look. 5,100. Hey, I know who that guy is. And then what do I have left? 5,100 for nobody. So
100 short of Javonte Williams.
Yeah. Is there another defense that's reasonable? Just do it. Just do it, Emery. Just do it. You're picking them out, right, Cameron?
Yeah.
So come on. Do it.
Yeah.
54 gives me the opposite running back.
Sure.
Damn it. I mean, it's a 3-gamer, so yeah, it makes sense. What about tight end? Is there a tight end I can get away from Trey McBride on this slate? I know you don't want to.
In a Kyler Murray build, I don't think so. But I think for the people, we're gonna have to build one with Tucker Kraft, because they're gonna start rioting in the comments.
Okay, Tucker Kraft is 3,900 though, so I'm not against it. George Kittle is not in our line at all. Mm-hmm. Okay, there are a lot of players I like on this slate, and that's scary. Let's see, 39. Why are we not by salary? We are by salary. Okay, I'll put Tucker Kraft in
39. And that's 4,000. That's the most expensive defense, which you don't need to go that high.
No, let's do that. And then I have $1,200.
If you prefer Javonte over Amir Abdullah, If you prefer
Yeah.
somebody over Jacoby Myers. So yeah, take out Amir because I don't want 2 Raiders. I don't think if
fair.
neither one is Brock
completely,
Bowers.
completely fair. So yeah, going like this isn't bad.
That's fun.
Yeah, and you get no San Francisco except for Christian McCaffrey, but Christian McCaffrey, so whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, I like this build. I think it's solid.
Real quick, let's do a Brandon Allen line.
Oh,
and then we'll get to
goodness.
our final start or inactive list, and then we'll start building.
4,000. I'm like, where is he? Oh yeah, he's free. Do you see him? There he is. $4,000. I could have put anybody in.
True. And then put CMC because
can we play George?
Kenneth Walker,
please. Oh, okay.
While you're there,
George, please.
George, sure.
George of the Jungle.
That's fine. And then defense. Obviously, can't play Green Bay in this one, so let's do Broncos and see if we can afford that.
Okay, 51.
Right. We can bring
53.
We can do this.
I think we should probably play Amir.
Okay.
Because that'll give us some money. Where 50? There you go. Okay, and then we have 3 receivers.
Or Tucker.
Lots of receivers to go through.
Okay, so
Jaden Reed, Cortland Sutton, and then San Francisco. Can't play San Francisco. Got too many.
No, not against it, but just a triple Brandon Allen stack is kind of
crazy.
A little crazy.
That's how you win millies. I've got my trash ready to be thrown on the field. Oh, great. Are you talking about? Y'all must be talking about the Texas A&M game.
Non-recyclable trash.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is tough because we're not able to get to a Cortland Sutton, Jaden Reed, or Marvin.
We aren't?
Put in all 3 of those real quick.
Okay, yeah, so 700, which is literally Jacoby Meyer, but we're playing against our defense. How do I? What can? Oh, Cameron. Cameron.
Okay. Yeah.
Hate it later. We're just gonna hope Denver sucks. Like we're gonna hope for the Denver Jets game, basically.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the game we want if in this case. No, I guess we still have the players. We want interesting. We just don't want it to go to anybody but Cortland Sutton, basically.
Right.
Want him to have 40 catches for like 40 yards, basically.
Fun stuff. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be willing to do multiple afternoon lines, but all of those are interesting to me.
Lots of tournament
you'll
plays.
have to look in the Discord and see what our final look will be. We'll probably shoot that out at about 2:30.
Yep. Do you have another slate you want to do? It is currently 10:33.
Yeah. So I was about to do look at the listing. We go through some of the inactives and actives list for the 49ers. For what it's worth, they are missing. Oh no, that's not the right. No, that is correct. So they're missing
Nick Bosa.
Yeah, their entire defensive is different from their NFC Championship game.
Wow.
Look, all 4 of them are not starting today. A couple of actives and inactives: Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, Sam Laporta, and Jonathan Brooks all in. Inactives, these aren't fantasy relevant, but Marshawn Lattimore still yet to debut with the Commanders. Tristan Wirfs is out for the Bucks, and Josh Oliver is not going to vulture some hockey puck touchdowns.
Thank God. I had to play double tight ends this week against. Actually, I'm playing Gary. We did start Amir Abdullah in that game because we have Isaiah Pacheco, who did not come back this week. So let's talk about this slate, though. Who do you want to start with? If you had to pick one quarterback. You're making a cash build. Who is your one quarterback?
Well, if we're doing cash, we're doing Jaden Daniels.
Okay. Jaden with his wide receiver.
Let's do some updated ownership.
Terry.
Anything's reflecting.
Scared Terry.
I actually am interested in doing a double with Brian Robinson.
Even on main? Okay. There's so many good running backs.
I think
the only reason I'm worried about it.
I think Roto is tripping right now.
Wow. That's
Fun
okay.
Stuff. But it's okay. We talked a ton of ownership game and stuff like that. So
and we pretty much have an idea. Yeah. Which running back would you like to get to, considering there are so many good ones?
Okay. So put in HN. And then let's see what put in Schoonmaker. That'll help us breathe a little bit. As a bring back. It's not a standalone, so makes me feel a little better. Okay. And then defense-wise, it don't matter. Since Chicago's the chalkiest defense, do you actually have a preference on somebody today? Because I'm still fine playing Chicago, but I actually thought about playing 3 to 4 lines with them, and now I want to play max 2.
I'm more on a Miami or Tampa Bay.
Okay. Well, let's start with Miami. There's Roto. Good boy.
So now we have three spots
on the main slate. Chicago's the most popular. Then Denver, Minnesota are the only 10%ers at least. So we got 5,800 to go, and a lot of ways to do it. So we could do some mid-tier plays. We can do go high low, get 2 strong ones. What do you prefer right now?
I'm sorry, laughing at
geeking over here.
Gary. Do not pick Jordan Love. You will lose money. I do love how many home games we have here.
Right.
If I had to say who I wanted, I think I want JSN. I would like to possibly get Marvin Harrison.
Don't have any Detroit guys for what it's worth.
That guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Amir Abdullah. Because we can get him on this slate.
I think I have an idea.
Okay.
So go down to Chicago. I'm trying to see something. Because we need somebody in the 3 o'clock games.
Well,
right.
Do we?
Yeah, we do.
Just kidding.
And then
Amir Abdullah was the one I was thinking for the 3 o'clocks. That'd give us
56, 50, 55 actually.
Yeah. Which is a Bucky Irving.
If we went to Boutte, that's enough for JSN.
I'd like to play 3 running backs in most of my lines.
Okay.
Because I want Kareem Hunt, guys. Wait, like 5,700 Kareem Hunt.
Let me look at some ownership for updated ownership. Updated ownership, Kareem Hunt now is the highest owned running back at 24.5%.
Should have been yeah. It's exactly how it should have been.
Yeah. And then, well, it was either him or HN because HN's actually dipped below 24% now. Still pretty popular. Yeah, a lot of these guys I'm interested in.
I think this is what I would say we should do. Is
to Miami.
That's
our early only.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
So how can we get different to include a couple of 3 o'clock gamers?
Well, let's see. Who do we want from that game? From the 3 o'clock, we want Arizona Seattle is a game we want.
Okay.
Can we go? We have to play a Detroit player probably, right?
I don't know. Yeah.
Basically, it's this, and you have 59. You can play JSN. Since we haven't really looked, we could play Cortland, JSN, Jacoby, Amir. All those names.
Look at all those ownerships for the main slate. Jaden Reed at 9.5, Sutton at 16.
Okay.
Juwan Jennings at 12. Marvin is at 11.
Okay,
Jackson
higher than I
is at
expected.
10.
Wow.
Really? And then Jacoby 13. So basically about 10% for all of them, give or take.
You can play Hop. Oh, well, we have.
I'd rather play DJ Moore over Hop, I think.
Okay.
I think.
And Jacoby at 5,100 doesn't entice you. Well, actually, let's go back down. Let's try that.
It's 25.
And then we have enough for Marvin.
Ooh,
that's
yes.
fun.
Yes.
There we go.
That took a little bit. We got to our destination.
We just needed to play
Detroit
Arizona,
players,
Seattle.
Kind of scary, but again, we're not going to do that for every line.
Right.
That might be our only line without a Detroit
all these
player.
home games.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. We could also take
every
HN.
Every away team is correlated except for Kareem Hunt, which obviously for good reason we're playing him.
Well, yeah, we could also take HN out and play Detroit if we wanted to. So
instead of
yeah, like if you just want, yeah, I mean that's what I meant. Yeah, you can put him in, but
well, that would be a little bit more leverage just because
HN's 24%
and Gibbs is, I believe, at 13.
Okay,
which is pretty solid.
Yeah,
and it's mainly because there's so much value at running back this week, which we've been waiting for because running back's been very, very tough. In recent weeks, we've basically had to go all the way up a lot of the time. But yeah, a lot of ownership. interest to me. Kenneth Walker at 15.
Mhm.
Brian Robinson at 16, I still think is low. Jameer Gibbs at 13, like I said. David Montgomery is never going to be highly owned, but he's at 10.
Mhm.
And then I mentioned earlier, I didn't think Jonathan Taylor would be as high as it was reflecting. He's down at 10 again,
Right.
and it might be even lower. Tyrone Tracy at 6
That's crazy.
is we're playing at least one Tyrone Tracy line.
Yeah,
At least
absolutely.
one.
So we can get over the field.
Probably just one. Amir Abdullah, for what it's worth, because again, he's 4,300. He's not going to project well because he's Amir Abdullah. But if he's a 5 reception guy today, he's
And
3% owned.
yeah, if he scores a touchdown, you're like, that's Millie Maker, optimal type of play. Guys, I just want to ask, could y'all send a quarterback? We're going to talk some roster ownership here for all the positions, but if you send a quarterback in the chat that y'all want to play, we will go over him. Of course, we want to keep it in that grouping that we've already talked about. But if y'all want to put anybody in there, we will make a line with that person because there are a lot of lines you can make today. And so we'll talk about that.
And then a couple more inactive active lists. So Jalen Coker, former minimum prize darling that we loved, is inactive. Thielen is back today. And then also Leggett, which is Dusty's Dorch call of the week.
Right.
Let's see who else.
Gary, he's not in the chat though. It's a little bit different.
You want to hear some quick tangent? Ryan Switzer is now named Tulsa's interim head coach.
The returner?
Yeah.
From North Carolina?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
He's like 29 still.
Why not?
Sure.
Why
he was
not?
somebody that I really thought was going to be a very solid Cole Beasley-esque player, and he just never
didn't get it. Yeah. It's okay though. Let's talk some ownership per position though.
Okay.
Starting at quarterback, we have the top 5 are Geno Smith at 12%, Jaden Daniels 10.3, Tua at 7.2, Anthony Richardson coming in at 6.5, which is good. And then Tommy DeVito at 6.4. It's very spread out.
What makes me happy is I agree. Other than Jaden Daniels, which we'll probably play 2 lines with, but not more than that. Every single quarterback that we talked about that we really are interested in doubling, which is, Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, Jared Goff, Caleb Williams, all of them less than 7% owned, which is really solid to me because there's a lot of ways to get different for all of them.
And then going to running back, top 5 are Kareem Hunt at 24.5%, which is very, very solid. They actually didn't improve his value though. They did not give him more fantasy points, which I thought was surprising.
Again, yeah, their projection to me is just way too low.
Yeah.
Again, his prop, if you missed it earlier, his prop right now over under for a PPR prop is 15 fantasy score. That's something that I thought would be closer to what his projection would be.
But that's also without 100-yard bonuses and stuff against a Carolina team that they're 10.5 favorites. HN is RB1. He's actually RB2, Dustin. I'm sorry, on the ownership slate.
Which I'm fine with.
Yes, absolutely. He is at 23.9%. Christian McCaffrey at 21.6%. Joe Mixon is getting a lot of ownership. I think that's an interesting guy because of the prices around him, both HN and Christian McCaffrey being pretty close in price. He is getting 17.4. And then Brian Robinson, who we keep talking about, is at 16.5. There are about 13 guys over 10% though.
Yeah. We love running backs this week.
Yes.
All kinds of running backs. We've been talking about it all stream long so far. A lot of guys to get different on, and we're probably going to have to make some uncomfortable decisions on who to outright fade. But at the same time, 1 line out of 5 with any of these guys, for the most part, is going to be over the field, which is fun to think about at least.
Yeah, Bucky Irving is now leading in the Tampa Bay Bucks backfield at 10.5%. And I don't even know.
White's at 7.
7, and Tyron Tracy's at 6.5. So there's
a
lot of guys down there.
Tracy line today, I think.
I agree. Cortland Sutton is the highest owned wide receiver at 16.1. Amon Ra at 15.9. Jacoby Myers is at 13.3. Nico. Hey, Nico. 13. All right. And then Justin Jefferson at 12.2.
A lot of those are just tough matchups, though. Outside of Amon Ra, even Cortland Sutton in their first matchup, he, I think, had a 6-point game against the Raiders. They actually haven't been terrible against, quarterbacks or receivers as a whole this year, despite, trailing a lot and giving points. Jacoby Myers had a decent production. Like I said, 13 points. I don't know if I love him enough to invest in him, considering he's the 3rd highest owned receiver. Nico Collins, okay matchup, but not great. Justin Jefferson, bad matchup, but he's Justin Jefferson. So I understand why. CD Lamb is somebody we haven't talked about all stream. Obviously, because he's playing with Cooper Rush, but they're 10.5 point dogs.
Game script makes sense, right?
He went down $1,000, so he's 7,300. That's some of the cheapest you'll ever see him while he's in his prime. He still had, I think, 12 targets last week, so he's worth a flyer. But also, Luke Schoonmaker being 2,500 is just, if I'm getting any Dallas, that's where I want to be.
Yeah. Steiger did join the chat. Got here at 10:46, so he made it before 10:59. We all lost our bet, but it's good to see you, Steiger. The next grouping is tight end. Schoonmaker is Travis Kelce's at 18.3%, which is a lot, but at the same time, great matchup. And he's one of the probably core plays for a cash build. Luke Schoonmaker, though, at 2,500 is 9.5%, which I think is too little. I don't know that I think he'll be higher than that. And then Brock Bowers, not 6.9, whoop, whoop. And then Trey McBride, 6.9, whoop. And then Zach Ertz at 6.5 to round it out.
I think one fun thing that sticks out to me, I know we want to do a lot of 3 running back builds, but our recent line, we had Kareem Hunt in the flex.
Yes.
He's basically the same price as Kelce, and he's more popular. So if you did a Luke Schoonmaker instead of Hunt, do a Kelce. He's projected better. Obviously, the high ownership, but it's not reflecting a double tight end line because rarely do people do those builds.
Right.
We've kind of done that this year a lot, and more often than not, it's actually worked out for the most part because we've nailed the values. Sometimes we just have had a tough time on the studs, at least, namely Travis Kelce last week. So just worth mentioning if you want to get different, that's a good leverage spot.
For sure. But yeah, that's most of our show.
Yeah, and then defenses for what it's worth. Chicago, 13%, Denver, 12%, Minnesota, 11%, Green Bay at 9%. I expect that to rise to probably over 10%. And then Tennessee Titans, which you mentioned earlier, just because they're cheap, bringing in the rear at 7%, 7.5% essentially.
Right after them, though, is the Miami Dolphins, who we've been talking about a lot. They're at 7.3. So
right, the highest values at least are Green Bay, Miami, Chicago, Denver, and the Giants actually. Which, okay, I understand.
Green Bay makes a lot of sense to be the highest value going up against Brandon Allen. And they're 2,800, so we will have some lines with them. We'll have some lines with Miami. Maybe with Chicago, just depending, but I don't know that I want to have a chalky Chicago at 13%.
Low owned but expensive one. Like if you can get there, because there is a lot of value on the slate. Kansas City being the most expensive, I think they're the highest projected overall defense, but they are less than 3% owned. So
what about Detroit, Houston, who's at 0.2?
Yeah, that's got to be incorrect.
That's crazy.
I'm not really looking at them up top.
Yeah,
but fair. Houston's another one that they're playing Will Levis. Turnover prone. They're big favorite. So they're 5%. So kind of sticking out because usually we do spend down on defense, but because of all the value at tight end and running back, there are ways to afford it up top at least.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let me let's get out of it.
Last minute kind of breaking news.
Let me grab the stop time. And I think that's the end of our show. We didn't get to primetime this week. The primetime slate is actually a lot of fun, so we will be putting some lines into Discord. So if you want to see those lines, go check out Discord. We're also going to be putting lines for the individual showdowns. I believe it's Baltimore and the Chargers, and then the Rams and why am I blanking? Who are the Rams playing?
The Rams are playing the Philly.
Oh, yeah, Philadelphia Eagles. So both of those games are going to be a lot of fun. We'll be talking about those in Discord, so please get in there if you want to see those lines come out. And, do you have any breaking news?
Not really. Just worth noting, Raiders are missing 2 cornerbacks today. Detroit's missing multiple cornerbacks, and Snead for the Titans was placed on IR. So even though Nico, it's an okay matchup, like it does help a lot that their best corner, L'Jarius Snead, is out. And then I didn't see a ton of this was a last night thing by Hayden Winks, one of the guys we follow. But basically the entire New England defensive line was questionable or banged up. I only saw 2 names that were out. Dietrich Wise was one of them, but they were already bad against running backs to begin with, so it just makes you feel even better about Devon Achane.
Perfect. Well, we're gonna get some chips and salsa and some tacos apparently, and hang out and watch some football.
I love it. I love it.
We will see y'all later. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us, and go in Discord. And if you haven't liked the video, please like the video. We would appreciate that, of course. But if you want to, go in our Discord and see our final thoughts and final picks. We'd appreciate that.
I appreciate you guys tuning in. It was a really fun stream. Appreciate all the comments, interaction, and we will see y'all for a lot of fun things this week. Again, it's a special Thanksgiving slate. We're going to be putting out Thanksgiving only special. We're going to do a Friday showdown, and then also, once again, we are going to be developing and doing our first ever, group contest. So college football, pick'em. It's going to have prizes. It's going to be a lot of fun interacting and stuff like that. So just be on the lookout for that.
Yep. Giveaways, and hopefully we can get a ton of people in there to play that confidence college football pick'em.
Yep.
So we'll talk to y'all next time.
That had to be